Trump says he is in control. But is he really helpless as Iran tightens its grip on the Strait of Hormuz again? Despite all the threats, is Trump now too scared to restart a wider war and limited to loud posts online? How many ships did Iran actually allow through the Strait of Hormuz amid the truce? And is this a real easing or just a temporary move? And amid Trump's pressure, has Netanyahu finally agreed to end the Lebanon war, or is this only a tactical pause? Amid a fragile ceasefire, US President Trump lashed out at Iran over the Strait of Hormuz, putting fresh pressure on the situation. Trump said, and I quote, "Iran is doing a very poor job, questionable some would say, of allowing oil to go through the Strait of Hormuz. That is not the agreement we have," unquote. Trump also dismissed a Wall Street Journal report that accused him of claiming a premature victory. Trump said, and I quote, "The Wall Street Journal, one of the worst and most inaccurate editorial boards in the world, stated that I declared premature victory in Iran. Actually, it is a victory, and there's nothing premature about it. Because of me, Iran will never have a nuclear weapon and, very quickly, you'll see oil start flowing with or without the help of Iran, and, to me, it makes no difference, either way. The Wall Street Journal will, as usual, live to eat their words. They are always quick to criticize but never to admit when they're wrong, which is most of the time," unquote. On April 9th, a total of 6 ships passed through the Strait of Hormuz, according to CBS News, despite the tense atmosphere. That included 2 oil, chemical, or LNG tankers, 3 cargo ships, and 1 bunkering vessel moving through the strait. This figure compares with 5 cargo ships that passed through the strait on April 8th, showing a slight increase in traffic. On April 7th, when the ceasefire was announced, 11 cargo ships passed through the strait, indicating a stronger flow at the time. Marine traffic data showed that since February 28th, at least 212 vessels have crossed the strait, according to the report. According to a new report, Iran will allow no more than 15 vessels a day to pass through the Strait of Hormuz under the ceasefire agreement it agreed with the United States. An unnamed senior Iranian source was quoted by Russia's state TASS news agency regarding the update on Strait of Hormuz. The Revolutionary Guards also directed ships to follow revised traffic patterns to ensure safe passage through the waterway. The advisory lays out specific entry and exit corridors designed to reduce risks for commercial vessels. The IRGC Navy also urged ships to coordinate closely with Iranian forces while transiting the strait. Vessels entering from the Sea of Oman were asked to move north of Larak Island before entry. Ships exiting the Gulf were advised to pass south of the island, following the newly designated safer routes. The new development comes after Israel hit Lebanon with some 100 missiles in just 10 minutes. Less than 24 hours after the US announced a ceasefire with Iran, Iranian state media reported that the Strait of Hormuz had been shut down again, reversing a key condition of the truce. The complete and safe reopening of the strait was President Trump's stated condition for the 2-week ceasefire, tying the pause in US strikes directly to the free passage of oil shipments. The stunning move came less than 24 hours after the US and Israel publicly backed the truce talks with Iran on March 7th to 8th, raising immediate questions about the deal's stability. The closure happened despite earlier indications that Iran would reopen the vital shipping route as part of the broader agreement, at least for the duration of the 2-week pause. On the night of March 8th to 9th, Iran's press TV reported that an oil tanker was turned away near the strait, underscoring the tightening of maritime controls in the region. The tanker, named Aurora, made an abrupt 180-degree turn at sea and instead returned toward the Persian Gulf rather than continuing through the strait. The US government has stated that the Aurora is a sanctioned vessel, alleging it is used to transport Iranian oil outside the usual commercial channels. Under the ceasefire agreement with Washington, Iran had reportedly agreed to reopen the Strait of Hormuz for maritime traffic. However, subsequent reports suggested that access to the strait would be regulated and implemented in a limited manner. An Iranian official told Reuters that full reopening of the Strait of Hormuz could instead take place on April 9th. On April 8th, US War Secretary Pete Hegseth stated during a Pentagon briefing that the strait was effectively open. Hegseth said that the agreement ensured that maritime transit through the Strait of Hormuz would resume under the terms discussed. However, the US defense chief appeared visibly annoyed when questioned about Iran's continued military activities despite the ceasefire.
Iran has said that safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz will be possible in coordination with Iran's armed forces and, quote, technical limitations. What do you believe that means? And then we've also heard reports that Iran has continued striking targets well into this morning. At what point are we beyond a grace period? Are we giving them a grace period? Is there a miscommunication there? What's going on with that?
What we know is that Iran is going to say a lot of things. A lot of people are going to say a lot of things, claim a lot of things. What has been agreed to, what's been stated, is the strait is open. Our military is watching. I'm sure their military is watching, but commerce will flow. And that's what you saw the markets react to, is that reality. As far as shooting, that we were monitoring it last night in real time. Of course we are. Iran would be wise to find a way to get the carrier pigeon to their troops out in remote locations to know not to shoot any longer one-way attacks or missiles, because this is it takes time sometimes for ceasefires to take hold. We're watching it. We're prepared if necessary, but we hope and believe that it'll hold. Yes.
Thank you, Secretary.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Excuse me. Why are you so rude? Just wait. I'm calling on people.
Thank you, Secretary. Yesterday in the President's Truth Social, he threatened to wipe out a civilization. That statement elicited a huge response in America. If Iran did not come to the table and make a deal yesterday by the deadline, was the president really prepared to wipe out Iran entirely?
Like I said, we had a target set, locked and loaded, of infrastructure, bridges, power plants. Remember, this is a terror regime. The military regime used all of these things for dual use to fund their military, to fund their terror campaigns. We had a lot of legitimate targets. They knew exactly the scope of what we were capable of.
Hezbollah and Israel kept up their attacks on the night of April 9th to 10th, adding to the confusion and uncertainty surrounding the ceasefire. Hezbollah launched what it described as its deepest attack yet in the ongoing war by targeting the southern coastal city of Ashdod. The IDF said it intercepted the missile fired at the southern coastal city before it could cause greater damage. No injuries were reported immediately, according to a report by the Times of Israel, though the situation remained tense. Sirens sounded in Tel Aviv and nearby towns in central Israel after the missile interception, warning residents to take cover. The IDF said sirens were also activated in Tel Aviv over fears that falling fragments could cause damage on the ground. Air raid sirens were also triggered in northern Israel amid growing fears of a Hezbollah drone attack. Amid intensifying hostilities, Israel's prime minister signaled that Lebanon, too, could eventually see a truce. Netanyahu's comments came after Iran claimed that Lebanon was included in the truce with the US, adding to the confusion. However, the US and Israel had denied including Lebanon in the two-week ceasefire deal, rejecting those claims. In response to Israeli attacks on Lebanon, Iran once again shut the Strait of Hormuz on April 9th, escalating the pressure. The reopening of the key oil shipping route through the Strait of Hormuz was one of Trump's conditions for a truce.
I want to tell you there is no ceasefire in Lebanon. We are continuing to strike Hezbollah with force, and we will not stop until we restore your security. Following repeated appeals from the Lebanese government to enter into peace negotiations with us, last night I instructed the cabinet to open direct negotiations with Lebanon in order to achieve two goals. 1. The disarmament of Hezbollah. 2. A historic, sustainable peace agreement between Israel and Lebanon.
Meanwhile, Iran's supreme leader issued a statement urging the Middle East to remain wary of the West and its wider intentions.
At this time, I say to Iran's southern neighbors that you are witnessing a miracle. So see correctly, understand correctly, stand in the right place, and be suspicious of the promises and lies of the devils. We are still waiting for a suitable response from you to show you our brotherhood and goodwill. This will not happen except by your opposition to the arrogant, who will not miss any opportunity to humiliate you and exploit you. We have not and do not seek war, but we will not give up our rights in any way. And in this regard, we are considering all the resistance fronts as a whole. Dear nation, although with the end of the official period of mourning for the martyrdom of our great leader, it may shed the attire of mourning, its resolute determination to avenge his pure blood, and that of all the martyrs of the second and third imposed wars, remains alive in its soul and heart, and it will persistently be on the lookout for its fulfillment.